Hello and welcome to Discover Energy Work. It's as simple as that. You just click subscribe to the podcast and in a moment you're magically there over the magic of the internet. And today I have a very magical Nish. Now wait a minute, I've forgotten your full name because I just got used to calling you Nish. Tell me your name.
I knew you'd do this. So my name is Nisha Ukani Velani.
Right. So that probably helped me because I probably couldn't have said it correctly, to be honest. It's one of those, it's like in Thailand, you know, I can read a Thai name, but, you know, I really can't say it, not yet. Nish, we kind of connected through Michaela Pay, who has just said like, oh, you have to meet up with Nish. And I was like, okay, well, that's good enough for me. And immediately we connected on the call. We were like, just like really, you know, chatting on a good wavelength. And I'd love, there's so many things I want to sort of talk to you about and share with everybody about what you do. But can you tell us, like, how do you describe yourself? Like, what are you?
So this is what I always get asked. And actually, I'm a lot of things. I'm a number of things. So basically, I just call myself a multi-dimensional metaphysical healer. I'm also a coach. I'm also a mentor. I'm also a guide. So when you work with me, we kind of pull on all of these things at different levels. I'm also an activator. So I don't actually have a title that I roll with. It's always different for different situations and what people are after, really.
Do you find sometimes like all these titles they sound a bit like weird? Do you know what I mean? Like I could go like, if I said a multi-dimensional, yeah, I'm like on 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, I travel through time because, you know, from past to present it's already 4-dimensional. Like everyone's multi. So I got to laugh. I always laugh at these titles, but essentially, like what I've experienced is you're literally able to see things that we're not normally able to see. You know, talking about our session. So for me, I'd say like, I mean, I would say like clairvoyant healer, but I mean, like when you're clairvoyant, it sort of covers a lot because once you go, I can see that, and I'm just getting the information that is almost something which is in your energy system, which is just needs to click and then things are going to get activated. And it's like this magic of, if you like, one thing that just opens up so many different areas. Am I making sense?
You're absolutely making sense. And it's interesting to hear how other people see and understand it as well once they've experienced it, because it's so different for everybody as well. And each session is never the same. And I'm always doing exactly what's right for that client or the person in front of me. And I completely agree with what you were saying about the whole like labels that we put on ourselves with the multi-dimensional, the metaphysical, and it literally is what I basically see shadow in your field, in the many layers of your field, and I help support uncover it, I support clearing it, and then I support the activations from the space that we've made space in, essentially. But yeah, that was a great way to put it, because, and also it's not just one Claire that I use, it's many, it's different, it's the knowing, it's the hearing, it's the seeing. So as I was mentioning, it's kind of pulling in all of the, I guess, different aspects of being psychic. Again, another label, which is like, what exactly does that mean? But and so I just basically do what's for the client and their best interest, really.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, there's these ancient texts which say if you can read this text and you haven't experienced these states of mind, then this text makes no sense whatsoever. It's kind of like angel's words, is I think the Chinese say, like it's the angel's words. But if you've experienced it, this text seems like it just makes sense. It's like common sense. So I think that's like for everybody listening, it's like, it's really a challenge if you haven't experienced the certain aspect of the spectrum through which we can experience the world, then sometimes it just sounds like people are talking, gobbledygook.
Exactly. It makes no sense. And I did, when I initially started speaking about what I was doing, I had a lot of people from my reality who were kind of like, I don't understand what you're saying in your social media. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I understood that as well, because I remember being, I guess it's the level of consciousness. There's no judgment behind that. It's just the space that you're in as you've kind of been up leveling and ascending, again, other words, which are just kind of like what, but it's this, it's the widening and expansion of your consciousness level to be able to, I guess, better understand through the logical mind what's going on. But we know that it isn't about the mind, right? We know that it's about the soul and the heart and everything else that's going on in the body as well.
Yeah. I mean, I like to say it's the matrix, because it's like it isn't the mind, but it is the mind. It isn't the heart, but it is the heart. It's like, well, it's kind of like everything. It's just the universe, really,
Exactly. Just the universe. We're just dabbling in. Yeah, exactly. And again, it's your frame of reference, right? It's kind of how you perceive, you take it in, and then how you're speaking about it as well. So I just trust that whatever I have to say is transmitted, and it hits those people that need to hear it, basically.
Right. That, again, this is like, it's really fascinating. Like, you can tell that what I want to do is jump into sort of talk all about that, but which is kind of like what happened the moment we chatted. We just talked for an hour, and I thought we should have recorded this, because everything we said is like, we're just connecting and making meeting the dots,
connecting the dots. Yeah, it was so fun.
And so, were you, like, as I say, like a chartered accountant with your very sort of pinstripe, and then one day you said, I'm gonna be a lion tamer, or that's the Monty Python joke, but I mean, you went, I'm gonna do something different, or was it a gradual thing? You just felt this call? How did you get into being this multi-dimensional everything?
Magical being, let's call it that. So I think I mentioned this to you earlier. For me, it wasn't like a moment where I was like, started hearing voices and seeing spirits, and it was a gradual thing. I mean, I've always been very much other, again, in inverted commas, because I'm from an Indian background. I really always marched to the beat of my own drum, and that kind of got me in a lot of trouble. That also meant that I suppressed a lot of my own nature, because I felt like I was supposed to be a certain way, right? I was supposed to behave a certain way. I was supposed to do certain things in my lifetime in a specific way. But I'd always gone against that grain as well, and I was supported by my parents in terms of what I studied in uni. I didn't do the typical doctor, lawyer, dentist thing. I went off and I did anthropology and geography, and my parents were like, okay, whatever you do whatever makes you feel good, although just make sure you have a career of some sort, right? And then I worked in the not-for-profit and charity sector for a very long time. My first job was in a hospice, and now I look back and it kind of makes sense, because I do connect with souls beyond the veil. And I was in the charity sector for a very long time, and then I started working in the complaints industry. So I got married and I was working in the complaints industry for 7 years, and this is what I was talking about. Some people, this may be their calling in life, but for me, it wasn't. And I'd been in that for 7 years, and it literally killed my soul, Richard. I was dying. I was literally dealing with people who were coming. I could feel, because I'm an empath as well, right? So energetically, I hadn't had a hold on, being able to master my energy, and also what was coming at me. So I'd be dealing with people who were very angry, who were very frustrated, who were very in the lack poverty mentality, because it was around finance and money. And so I hit a point after 7 years where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And during that time, I do see now, though, it was during that time that I started almost, I'm going to use this phrase, waking up, coming into really coming back to myself and being like, what is it that I want? It's definitely not this. And I slowly started to wake up. So there was a period of anxiety and depression that I worked through, and the working through of that, I guess it was my first dark night of the soul. And in working through that, I almost had this calling of being like, there is another way to get through this. You know, at that time, it wasn't for me to be on the medication. It was to explore all these suppressed feelings and shadow and things that I wasn't allowing myself to feel. And so that's really where it started. And that's where my journey of actually self-exploration started, and going back to soul and tapping back into my soul essence.
So were you in therapy? Was somebody saying, okay, let's go and look at the depression, let's go and look at that, or not really?
Yeah, I tried a few things. I tried spiritual stuff, which was really enriching to me. And I did try therapy. So I did CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. But at that point, it was very much going around in circles. I couldn't see a way out, because it was almost just re-talking about kind of what was going on and why I was feeling this way. And it didn't feel like I was making any kind of movement in how I was feeling. But I do think that did help me offload. It helped me be in a safe space where I could get it off my chest, because so many of us don't even feel like we deserve a space like that where we can genuinely just offload. So yeah, I started the conventional therapies, and then I started exploring, and I don't actually even remember how it came across my path. The usual way, it probably just dropped into my lap on social media. And I had an astrology session with someone who was amazing. She was an intuitive. She read my chart. And at that point, I wasn't ready to hear a lot of what she was saying to me, because again, as we were talking about the levels of consciousness, the expandedness of what we can hold. But from there, I started, she was kind of like, everything's within you. You just need to start connecting to source. And that's how it started, I guess.
Wow. I mean, I can't remember you telling me all that, but I mean, seriously, you probably did.
I think I did. I think we went off on a tangent and started talking about something else.
We were everywhere. We were just like enjoying the being able to talk to somebody that what I'm saying isn't crazy, and it's our sort of crazy, as I like to say, what I'm curious about, because we did a session, so I can say to everybody, like, I'm already like, I do meet people and I have interviews with people. I do not know how good they are. And I believe that they're good. That's why they're speaking, or I believe they've got a good story for me. And that's their story is really sort of to share. What I found fascinating, and in a way it woke it up for me again, was what I think we both term as psychic surgery. So was that something that just came intuitively, or did you learn that from somebody?
Yeah, so that was intuitively. So
wow.
I trained to access, so I worked through the Akashic records as well. So essentially I'll harness the power of the Akashic records for some of the work that I do with people. And as you know, I'll kind of almost take you up to your soul frequency and we work there. And I channel the divine. So that's where I'm guided from, but it's almost like the records are a tool for me to pull things in and clear out, etc., etc. So I trained to learn how to go into the Akashic records with integrity, because that's the most important thing, right? As we're talking about the highest of everyone involved and calling in those beings to support us that are of the highest light. And the psychic surgery is just something that almost just turned on. It just happened. The more that I practice working with people, and a lot of what I do is very intuitive. It's kind of what I'm guided to do. And every session will literally be like, oh, wow, I've not done that before, but I'm being guided to do it. And so it takes place. And that's why it's really difficult to then label what you do, because some of it others might not be doing, or others will be doing, but they have another name for it.
Yeah.
But it's always so unique to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, because I think that's sort of, in a way, the whole genre suffers from labelitis, where somebody is coming to you and they think they need a coach, and actually they need psychic surgery. They think they need to be told something, and you can go, well, actually, there's this thing that's in your energy system that, like, almost physically needs to be removed. It's something which has been put there, or which you've taken on, because people, they take on other people's stories, they take on their parents' stories, they take on ancestor stories. They can even literally go to a place which has a story there and walk away with the story. So, I mean, it's like, and then they're wondering why they're struggling, and you can go, okay, well, actually, it's not really, we don't really need to talk about this. Let me just clear this. Okay, now call me back in a week. How are you doing? And they're going,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it is. And I think we spoke about this as well. And I know it's very much how you work as well, in terms of, it's always, so when I do a session with somebody, it's always setting the intention that whatever needs to be cleared or healed, or awareness that need to come up for them at this time in their timeline that's for their highest good, is what takes place. So as you said, someone could come in with a preconception of, I have a money block here, but actually there's something else that we need to actually look at before we can even tap into whatever the other thing is that they think that they need.
Right. I've got the great example for that. I say to people, like, because of my medical background, I say, look, just imagine you've got, like, I can see what the main sickness is in you, and I can, it's a block of, blobbly, horrible, poisonous energy, and I can release it. However, if I release it, your physical body's been so weakened by carrying it for all this time. If I release it, it'll probably kill you, because you can't get rid of it. So we're going to have to work a different way. We're going to have to build you up, and then we're going to release it. And you might think by the time we release it, there was nothing. But it's working from that, if you like, this inherent wisdom, or I like to say, like, the highest good. I like the highest good of all. So I don't want to, it's not about me being the greatest healer, it's about you being better. Can you tell us some war stories? Like, the stories where people have walked in, and had some terrible thing, and or is it all very secret?
I can obviously I won't go into too much detail around specific circumstances. However, the cool stuff that happens, and it's just your mind is blown every time. So I think I told you about, I do a lot of entity clearing from the field. So it's not only things that are hanging in the many layers of your field. There's also things around curses and vows that are made that actually are almost entwined in part of your physical being, and in your chakra system as well, which we don't even realize. And some of these agreements were made many lifetimes ago, but they still sit in your field. You're still carrying them with you. So there was one session where a beautiful client of mine, she had made an agreement with a dark entity, again inverted commas, around her survival, and it was literally like, I need to survive, and I will hand over my power to you so I can survive. And this was sat in her sacral, and it was this really insidious dark entity that had entwined itself into her power center. And we don't see that until, like you were saying, it's such, and I always say this is such a layered process. That came through, I think, on the second session that I did with her, because in the first session we were able to clear the residual stuff that was just in the way of us seeing, stuff that she might have had around anxiety that was sitting around that area. And so it was the right time for this entity and this agreement to be renounced, for her to let go of it. So it's not an invasive thing, because it is always in their greatest good, and I will never ever do anything that is not for their greatest good, and I'm not guided to do by God, basically. And so what we did was I pulled it out using the psychic surgery, and we I talked her through it, and so she's in alignment with what's happening, and she knows exactly what's happening, and she can feel it being removed from her field, and being fully in renouncing it at this point as well, and really getting her energy behind pushing out of her field as well. So it's very much like a co-healing, explorative journey that I have with my clients, because I think I mentioned to you, it's their energy working with mine. So we meet and we uncover and we heal together. So so that was pretty mind-blowing.
I mean, it's interesting. I think what's interesting about it is it brings up this whole interesting area, which I don't think we're going to finish covering in a session, but the whole area of entities, because, sometimes I do think, we are human beings. We're symbiotic. There's more non-human cells in the body than human cells. Yeah. As we have parasites, viruses, fungi, everything, which are working to support us. Yeah. So if they're not entities, I don't know what are. So the term entity is often, it's like, dark entity, but it's like, what isn't an entity?
Exactly. Yeah. And again,
the person, again, it sounds like they survived because of the help of this thing, and then they need to be able to go on, they need to let it go. So it kind of also is a sort of symbiosis.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, because at that point it was what she felt she needed to do in order to survive. And part of the journey, again, inverted commas, is to not shame ourselves and not guilt ourselves and not cast judgment around what we may or may have not done in order to survive. It is part of, we are here to experience being human at the end of the day. And so moving through holding yourself with grace and compassion whilst you're doing the healing and uncovering the layers and just trusting that you did what you had to do at that point, but now it's no longer serving her, so it needed to be removed from her field because it was weighing her down. So
and well, we did our session, we did it over the internet, so just I can imagine, like, when COVID came, it's like how's this going to work? I imagine you'd be seeing people in real life. No, it was easy transition.
Well, I've never done in-person sessions. It's always been remote.
Oh,
that's how I've worked. Yeah, because I essentially went full-time when in the middle of COVID, or when COVID hit at the beginning. So I left was it last year August, and I went full-time online. And sometimes it is hard for people to get their heads around how the energy stuff works when you are so remote, but again, there is an illusion around like time and space, and energy work, it can be equally as potent over Zoom as being with me in person.
Yeah, I think it's something interesting. It's something to do with physics. We have this Newtonian physics and we have this quantum physics, and it seems like they, at the quantum level, there's a set of laws that aren't applicable at this level, at the Newtonian level, and yet we're saying actually they are applicable.
Yeah.
Hello, they're working for us, because somebody can be here and there at the same time, and perhaps they're neither, And I always say, we know in psychology, people that have terrible traumas, they can have flashbacks, and to all intents and purposes, they are that they're somewhere else, like that they experience being somewhere else. Everything around them is as it was when they had the trauma. And that means that our sense of self being here now is, a little bit flexible. Yeah.
Right.
Very flexible. Yeah.
Exactly.
And yes, I find it amazing.
So do I, and that's why there's this kind of multi-dimensional aspect to it, is because at this time you're living like multiple lives, past, present, future, everything's happening at the same time. It's kind of, how do you get your head around it? How do you get your head around explaining that? But as we're doing the work here, it is impacting other places that you may be. So
yeah, I always say to people, like, so if you imagine your problem is the thing that you don't want to see, like, it's, if you could see it, you wouldn't have it. So you need somebody who's going to kind of look and we're talking with Michaela about this, like how she sees things, in people, and it's like, well, if you see what their problem is, it's a real skill to be able to say that's your problem, because it is terrifying for us to be told what our problem is, because we've definitely created a whole blind spot around it. It's like,
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. It's the blind spots, and that's why we go to coaches, healers, mentors, guides, right, to be able to turn that mirror on ourselves and be kind of like, hi, this is where it is. But that's also the skill and the precision around. And this is, it took me a long time, I think I said this to you, to actually really own the fact that, I am a channel for God, like I am a channel for divine, and this is where I source what's in the most highest good and support for you. But also an element of really understanding the precision that some of us work with. And as you know, like when I go into someone's field, I'm told straight away, I can see it straight away what needs to be cleared, and I know that more will be revealed. So it's just that laser focus as well. I mean, you can faff about for ages doing loads of different bits and bobs, but if you are not bypassing, but if you do, want to work through things quickly, almost quantum speed, then precision is so key in being able to uncover, I guess, with speed, and then working through what's coming up and then keep on going. But what is at the perfect rate and flow for that individual, that client as well? Because sometimes it can take a bit longer, integration, all of those things. And sometimes it just happens like that, So it's always what the client needs, always.
I mean, we've got a great story, and thank you for, telling me the story about the lady with the entity in the sacrum. But I'm always thinking, like, for me, and I mean, I think it's a fantastic story of how quickly this has all happened once you stepped in, and I think I'm grateful. So, I can also let people know you don't have to have had some terrible event in your life. You can just, in a way, grace can just say, okay, you need to do this. It's time. You don't need like cancer and to survive cancer and all this. It's possible that we can all, I don't know if we all can, but certainly, a lot of us probably can. But I wanted to say, my question is, I've got some really funny stories in my life outside a session that just like weird, freaky stuff has happened. I think, like, people probably need to know that it's a life now. It's like, this is now, you can't say that this, you step in front of the camera and you switch it on. It's like, no, this is you now. Yeah. And I think it's hard for some people to understand. Yeah. Good stories about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's like kind of when you're not even in sessions, but you're spending time to come back to your soul, and you're meditating and you're going beyond the veil, and you are having the most interesting conversations with galactic beings, with your ancestors, with your grandparents that have passed over, and they're gifting you activations, and it is absolutely mind-blowing and the most beautiful thing. And there is part of me which really feels like I wish everyone could experience this, because there is so much that that we can tap into, that we can experience, that we can understand on this different level. It is kind of, and also the memories that start coming back about things that you might have experienced in childhood but was dismissed because it was kind of like way too out there. But the most beautiful thing for me was initially when going beyond the veil, and 3 of my grandparents who passed over, they all came in, and I was just in floods of tears, because is such a gift to know that they're walking with me and they're supporting me, and they're supporting me in healing my ancestral lines, and they support me in every decision that I make. And that is just the most beautiful gift. And I'm just so blessed, and it's there's so much gratitude around being able to connect with that and being able to have full faith in that they're there. But yeah, and the usual stuff, you know, the flickering of lights and the just knowing that spirits are around, that you're supported, angels swooping in, just it is just a way of life, and walking in that path of faith. It's just
yeah. I mean, it's I mean, I think for a lot of people, they don't know that, you know, the lights flicker for you sometimes, or they don't know that, you know, somebody will call up and, you know, say, I've got this message or whatever. You know, I mean, I think for me, like, one of the weirdest ones was being hit by a motorcycle. Somebody was asking me, what's the weirdest, most incredible thing that's happened to you with energy work? And it was like, I was crossing the road in Bangkok, and I forgot to turn to look right, and between the two rows of cars, a motorcycle just was zooming, and you know, he braked when he saw me, but he hit my leg, the leg that was in the air. He must have hit it with, I don't know, 10 or 20 kilometers an hour. And I'm thinking it's 100 kilos with a bike and a rider on it, which is mass times acceleration. That's like, it's a ton or two. They hit my leg, and I didn't fall over, and I didn't have a bruise, and I didn't, and I'm like, I'm shaken up, but I'm sitting down in Starbucks like 5 minutes later going, I should have flown through the air, but none of it happened. And the only thing I could think of, like 5 minutes before, I felt like I was, I don't want to use the word dead, but I felt like an incredible peace came down on me. It's like incredible peace. And I thought, this is weird. I don't know what this is about. This is weird. Okay. And then I just like, I'm going to go over to Starbucks. I'm going to go across the road, and boom. And I heard it, and I looked down. I thought, I bet I've lost a leg. I thought, I bet I've lost a leg. So when I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and she's saying, oh, I'm worried about this. And I said, look, do you know what the weird stuff that's happened to me? I know I can worry about it, but there are things that happen in life, or energetically, if you're connected, that we really don't understand. We really, really don't understand, but they do happen. And it's beyond, like, I mean, you know, we had Stanley Krippner on the other week talking about apports, which means physical objects appearing out of nowhere. Yeah. And he did a scientific study on it. They know it's real. It's not a magician, because you can't make the Earth's geomagnetic waves change if you're a conjurer. Just amazing. That
is an amazing story. And I'm trying to think, but you know, when you're just kind of like, oh, so much has happened that it's
well, it's going to happen. I think, like, for me, it's very clear to me that, like, you're extremely talented, and you know, you've just really so amazingly full of grace to jump in the way you have, and you know, these things are going to happen. For, you know, they're going to be like, you know, 100 things that are going to happen, and you're going to write a book as well. You're going to tell people your stories.
Well, thank you. Oh, I appreciate that so much, especially coming from you, because we had that conversation around discernment about who you allow in your field as well. Like, I'm very, very picky, as we all should be, about who we allow in a field, who we allow to to heal, to support us in our healing, who we hire, who we work with, who we spend time with. It is all really important. So I'm very, very grateful that we've connected. I know we're going to have more chats like this for sure. But I am actually, I've written a chapter in a co-authored book a little bit about kind of the Akashic field and my work in it. And yeah, so that's coming out soon as well. So, but I would like to write an actual book, because I know you've written one at least, haven't you, about your theories.
I've got to say, I think my books are art books. They're my expressions. So I'm never going to be, well, no, but not speak too soon. I'm not expecting to be an Amazon bestseller. My book was about two books. One was about this primal energy. So going back to primal energy, and there's 9 states of development that it goes through, and that was channeled. That came through, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. I'd never thought of that, and yet I have. I was never taught it, but I've been taught everything around it, and now I see it. And I just wrote a book about it, and that's called The Tao's DNA. And then the other one was more practical, this emotional grammar that we did together, and that was Feel and Heal. Yeah. So I've written 2 books, but the only person that'll publish them is me through Kindle. So.
Yeah, they say self-publishing is the future, so I say, if you've got something to say and the world needs to hear it, someone out there needs to hear it, and you're doing your bit by putting it out there. So absolutely. I mean, the thing is when you write a book, I think you think you're feeling this, is it's you've got something you want to express, and if you do that, if you've done that, you've succeeded. And that's all. It isn't. I shouldn't say this, because of course it is about the reader. But for me, in so many ways, it's not about the reader, because the reader will find it. Your readers will find it. So, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we were talking about. How those souls that need to hear it will find their way to it. And you've done your bit in putting it out there, listening and putting it out there, and keeping on doing that. That's kind of basically it. That is the formula, but it's all of the stuff around the doing and the being that we struggle with, and the listening as well, and all the shadows and everything that get in the way of that. So I'd like to, there's 2 things. So one is to sort of round off, how can people get in touch with you? Are you like Michaela and your no, Michelle. Sorry, Michelle. I think look at Michaela. Michaela. Oh, that's it. I've got. I love you in the names. I love you, because I listened to this other podcast of yours, and you were kind of like, "Oh, I've forgotten your name," and I was like, "He's going to do that to me." I know he is as well, and that's fine. That's perfect. There's nothing. Yeah. I'm a bit relaxed, I think. But I mean, I always say, I'm not editing it. I've got, I'm not going to do all that. It's going to be a conversation, and it's just going to be how we talk. Of course, I will if it's really needed, but I haven't really needed to. What I wanted to say was, people can connect with you through Facebook, I imagine, through Instagram, how's the best way? So Facebook's the best way. I do have a website. It's just www.nishauukanivelani.com. And there is a way that you can contact me on there, but Facebook's basically the best. And I have an Instagram account as well, which is Nisha_Velani. So however people want to follow me, if you are intrigued by what I've been saying, and if there's, a calling to learn more, then just hit me up on any of those places. And then my second thing was, I feel like there is so much offering out there for people that said, I want to learn, I want to connect. I feel it, but, how should I start? What should I avoid? What do you think if somebody came to you and said, okay, what's the best advice you can give me? The best advice I would say is get quiet, drop into your heart, and listen to what your soul's saying about where to go next. That is the best advice. That is how we all roll. That is the essence of being at this time. And go from there and trust what you're hearing, because, you know, I have been in so many containers with healers, coaches, which haven't turned out exactly how I thought they were going to turn out, but there has been a reason to all of it. You know, there's always been lessons and learning. So you can never go wrong, is what I'm going to say, but just lead with heart, drop into heart and listen to what that's telling you.
Yeah. I get people can, if they're listening to the podcast, they can see that I was holding out my double thumb to say, like, totally. I mean, I think when I ask this, I get that response from a lot of guests, like, okay, now people are going to tell you they've got the greatest answer, and I'm not saying they haven't, but you need to drop into your heart and ask yourself, because, like, you know, if they're more important than you, then you probably don't want to go with them. Yeah, you need to just drop into that's, you know, the box.
Space. Exactly. Drop into that space, and really listen to what it's telling you about the person that you might want to be working with, or you might want to learn from, or what's the next step. And, you know, they will never give you the 10 steps. You know, intuition will always just guide you one foot in front of the other. But I would just say there's a reason that you're intrigued. There's a reason that you're curious. And there is a calling, and a mass calling right now to go deeper, to come into that soul essence, to come into that soul actualization, because that's, you know, is the name of the game. And it's supposed to be fun as well. I mean, we work through all the shadow and stuff, but there is a play and pleasure aspect to get into as well.
I totally wanted to talk about shadow, and I haven't, but because we just run out of time. But I mean, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Nisha. And
thank you for having me.
You did brilliantly. You're awesome. You are awesome. You were, and you are, and you will be.
Thank you, Richard. It's been fantastic.